So this is me. That was 8 years ago. I look always the same. And that time I was working actually as English teacher in Italy. But originally I finished psychology, I work as a trainer, I'm an NGO worker, and I do training since I would say 15 years, which makes me also older than you think, you know. I know that I look very young, but there was a lot of things happening. That time, 8 years ago, we were living in Italy, but I'm originally from Poland, which is also in Europe. And yeah, I was always into social work, as it was mentioned, connected with Książek. I started as a scout. I don't know if any of you were in scouting, but that was my beginning when I was very little, 7, you know. And through volunteering work, it also became my professional work. And this 8 years ago, I went for the exchange program. In Europe, we had like possibilities to study in another country for 1 year. So I went to Portugal, and that's where I met Andrea.
And by that time, I was a student in chemistry. So like I have a PhD in chemistry, and all my life I was a researcher. And I'm still a researcher in many ways, but now I'm more interested in people. So what I do is try to understand how like society and community, flow with each other, and what happened in different places in the world, and how people relate. So this is my main interest right now. But I also I'm in love with nature, and this is one of the things that we have in common. And there are another thing that we have in common, which is traveling.
So basically, this 4 years ago when it all started, we met 8 years ago in Portugal. Then we're in long distance relation, not recommended. Then we lived in Italy for some time. Then we lived in Poland, and then we thought, okay, what next? We are very lucky to live in Europe where there's no borders, so we can go to another country and work and live in another country, as I would work in Poland. So we're thinking, okay, maybe we go to some other country, and then day by day we start to dream, hey, maybe we just quit everything and start to travel. I'm sure we are not the only one in the world, right? And as many other people, we just opened our bank account and thought, well, as NGO worker or university worker, you don't become particularly rich to have enough money to travel around the world. So we had to figure out a more creative way, about which I hope to speak later. What I would underline now is that we are, after 4 years of traveling with some breaks, we visited 35 countries in 3 continents. So we started in Southeast Asia, so quite close from here in September 2015, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, we have Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, and Myanmar. That was 9 months. Then we came back home to Europe to, go for the wedding of friends which choose more traditional path and say hello to Mama, especially Mama Italiana, it's very important. So we came back to Europe for some time. The second part was more closer to our home, so it's like Balkans, Turkey and Caucasus, so it's still Europe, but not European Union, so a lot of people forget that it's still Europe. And there's a lot of interesting culture. Then again, Mama Italiana wedding and so on. And our last big travel was in South America, where we spent 1 year. So all these countries which you see here. And then we actually had longer break in Europe when we did a lot our programs. And in the beginning of December, we started in Sri Lanka. And now finally we are in India. From funny things, we tried to arrive in India since 4 years. We wanted to come here when we were in Southeast Asia, but for some reason we never managed, Or suddenly somebody told us, go to Philippines, and we went opposite direction. Or somebody told us, no, we cannot give you visa. In Kuala Lumpur, they told us, you cannot get Indian visa. But there was million reasons which we postponed India, and we are so happy to finally arrive here. Okay, during our travel, we try to visit cool places. This is what we do when we travel. And you guess what it is or where it is?
Turkey.
It's in Turkey. So this is a symbol of happiness in Turkey. It's not Istanbul though, it's so-called Cappadocia. And it's a place where you have all these caves and people were living there, and it looked like another planet. So actually some of the Star Wars were made exactly there, because then you don't have to create another planet, you just go to Turkey, right? Mm-hmm. Of course we visit some monuments. Machu Picchu, that's easy one, right? But what we are mostly interested are actually people who have different approach, different tradition, different lifestyle, different attitude, different values. This is what we actually mostly travel for. And we also try to balance different kind of developments. So, of course, you develop your languages and you develop your geographical skills and you develop your social skills, but we also try to go deeper inside ourselves. And we do believe that the inner journey is more important than the outer one. So this is after Vipassana. Again, we did it in Malaysia, but it comes more or less from here, from Myanmar more. Meditation is not really so traditional in Europe. So without any meditation experience, we get for 10 days meditating 12 hours per day. I have to say that was very long 10 days of my life. But this is what we look for, like going deeper. This is a full meditation, but also we had some chance to go for more spiritual understanding of indigenous people in South America and so on and so on. So there are different traditions which we try to see what they have also in common and what they differ. So this is a little bit our story, but when I stand in front of people, it's not to really convince you to quit everything and travel. Traveling is cool, so if you really have this dream, of course, I would always recommend it. But the point is that, some people love traveling and some love painting or some love nature and other people want to really have a business or big family. And what we really try to work on is to rather encourage people to go into their own stories, their own dreams and their own passions, which may be traveling, but absolutely doesn't have to be. But working with people since these 15 years in different ways as trainer and coach and so on, I have this strong feeling that 99% of people don't know what they want from life. And which finish up with being unhappy, but also not giving our potential to the world, I do believe that only when we discover our story and what we like, what are our passion, what are our strengths, then we can actually give it to the world. If we are unhappy ourselves, it's difficult to make happiness to others, to nature, and so on. So this is our first thing. We try to encourage people through workshops and different actions to actually follow their own dreams and identify their own dreams, which is already a very difficult step. For me personally, it was more than 2 years of really hard work and this meditation, kind of coaching, training, a lot of crying, a lot of anger, a lot of oh my God, this will not work, to actually discover that, I'm nomad in my soul and it's difficult for me to be in one place, so I really need to just go and see what happens. And the second thing, the second message is to change the world, because we somehow believe that if we want to achieve the fulfillment and happiness, it's difficult to do it if we live only for our own, right? And when we speak about changing the world, we don't necessarily mean all the planet. I'm quite modest, and I know that already changing myself is a challenge. So it's more about changing myself and my immediate circle, my friends, family, my community, right? So this 4 years ago, we discovered, okay, we love to travel, and now how traveling can change the world for better. It's not an easy question, because it's rather opposite, right? We travel, we use CO2, and it's not the most sustainable thing. So we're thinking, okay, how can we contribute at the same time following our story and our dreams? And as it was mentioned, I was working that time in an organization which is called Ashoka, which was inspired actually here in India, where Bill Drayton basically, he's finding people who are changing the world and supporting them in their way by giving scholarship and mentoring and so on. And so I would start every day of my work in front of computer, reading these old stories about people who solve problems which all of us believed are absolutely unsolvable, And those stories give you such a power and inspiration that you also feel like, oh my God, I want to do something as well. Maybe not that big, but it gives this spark of inspiration. And we thought, okay, maybe this is it. We go around the world, we collect the story of so-called change makers, and we will share it with people. Maybe not as big change makers as Ashoka, but rather this small grassroots project. Because also we realized that people believe that the world is so bad because they open TV, they open newspaper, and what you have there? You have their crime and, natural catastrophes and hunger and conflicts, but they are not good stories. And in the world, there's millions of good stories. So this is exactly what we do. We go around the world and we collect stories of change makers of different kinds. Yes, this is the moment when you have to change the slide. Very good. So the stories are very different. Here, for example, is just teaching English. by local teachers, but it's in the middle of Cambodian village which don't have access to running water, electricity, and kids basically don't even finish the primary school because they work on the fields, you know. So bringing English, bringing education can be a real change. But the stories we say are very different. Some of them you will hear later in the game. It can be about education, or I don't know, women's rights, fighting poverty, environment. There's a million ways in which we can change the world for better. Yeah, so we did more than 311 interviews, which also give us a little bit of overview, right? Like what kind of people actually challenge the world and try to solve problems. 72 stories you can already read on our website. But we realized after first year of traveling that, you know, people like our stories on Facebook, but this doesn't really change the world for better, right? So we thought, okay, how else we can use our stories to bring real change? And we started to do workshops like this and presentations to give more touch of people that this is real and, you know, build some network opportunities and so on. We also created full Changemaker course, which is like 6 days course where we really go through values, dreams, passions into creating social projects. We did more than 23 of them. And we wrote one book. I can just show you. This is a book. I mean, this was a book written with collaboration with Scouts. So there's a lot of Scout language. But there's also no Scout version which teachers and educators use. And those are 17 scenarios, so step-by-step instruction for teachers and educators, how to work with changemaker stories with kids and youth. So basically, based on the real stories which are at the end, we create exercises in interactive form, so children and youth of different age can be inspired to be changemakers. There's more than 40,000 kids who already took part, and they sent us like 2,000 reports with like posters, how they change the world in community. So this is also like, we try to find as many practical ways of using real stories as possible. Okay, so that was the introduction part. Very good. Do you have any questions for that moment?
What questions?
Your website name?
That's a very good question, of course. I will tell you at the end, you know. It's called exchangetheworld.info. So exactly the name of our project.info. But then at the end, I promise you will have a chance to like us on Facebook and to follow our website. This is included. Okay, I mean, we will have more time for discussions and questions, formal, informal, doesn't matter. But then let's start again. Yeah.
Book is available in Amazon.
Book is not available anywhere because it's, I mean, I can send it in PDF to all of you. It's written on Creative Commons, which means that it's open source. You can use it for free. We don't have many printed versions, also because, you know, we travel with one small bag, right? So I can send you PDF. That's what I can
It's there in your website, right?
Yes, it's on our website as well.
Okay.
So you can download it yourself. For now, it's in Polish and English. We are actually collecting volunteers to have also now Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. Because, yeah, we see that it's working for different countries, so we are actually collecting also people to translate it to different ways. And we wrote already the second one, but it's not done. So this is all I can share with you, especially. Yeah, if you want to give me your email, I can also send all the links to the stories I will tell today, all the materials and so on. Everything we do is basically open source because this is what we believe, you know, we want people to be able to use things which are hopefully worth to use. Okay, you want to introduce games, so it's not me speaking all the time?
No.
I mean, I love speaking, but...
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, we try to, well, we have many stories to say, as she mentioned, and we want to say the stories, but we try to do it in a sort of interactive way, so it's not like not boring for you, and it's also like bring you a little bit into the action. So the idea is to do it through a game, and it's like a standard board game, like a standard game of the goose, right? So you will have to go through the path, and of course, there is some challenge on the way. No? So like if you step on the blue, then you will choose one of the stories which are there, and we will tell the story. But if you step on the red, there will be some tasks to do, and you will be divided in groups, and you will do it in groups. While if you step on the yellow, is a standard hazard game, hazard task. So like it will be like go back 2 steps or go 3 steps, this kind of thing. Make it a little bit more interesting. Now maybe we can divide it in 3 groups. Well, Eden City Tour is a tour. It's a tour through the city of Barcelona. Barcelona, Spain is super touristic, but really super touristic, so much so that now they start to have problems in the city because it's not sustainable. And the point is that this, very often the standard tours, they drive the people through the city to see the major monuments, the most interesting, like the Sagrada Familia, all these worldwide known structure or building or monuments. But they, take the picture and they go. And people, like tourists, start to long for some more real stories, to go through the city and inside the city and live in the city. So what Lisa, which is this English lady here in the middle, did was to realize that there was this need, and at the same time that this need could be used to help some people that live on the road. So she actually saw this social enterprise in working in England, and she decided to apply the same concept in Barcelona. And the idea is that the homeless, they live in the Indian side of the city. They know it very well. They know, where is the corner where there are all the drug dealer, or the corner where there are where something bad happened and so on. And they can actually be the perfect guide to go through these kind of spaces, to go to the places where real people live. And so this is the idea. We also got the opportunity to meet 2 of them. They were on the picture with Lisa. And it was also interesting to know that the background of these people was completely different. One guy was into drugs, since he was this guy is actually from Germany originally. He was into drugs a little bit, not every drug. When he was younger, he got caught by the police. He was kicked away from Germany, so he went to Barcelona. He had an easy life for a while, then the money finished, and he ended up living on the street. So these kind of things happen very often. But this guy is completely different. He has completely different background. He was he studied English philology. So he was a translator. He was working for a book company. He was translating history books. And then 2008, the crisis came. He lost the job. And then he was 38 years old, and he was struggling to find another job. And very often the answer he would get is, "You're too old, I'm sorry." And he started to go into depression. He couldn't find any job, so this loop just took him down. And in a few months, we find himself on the street. So he was homeless and jobless. And finally, they both, in a way or another, meet this lady, and they got a job as a guide. So they got back the dignity and those money. So they sort of came back to the society. And this is what this enterprise. And at the same time, also giving a real experience to the tourists that come to Barcelona.
So let's go to the next thing. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a task. So again, we have a team. You have to a little bit gather, so we are able to discuss for 2-3 minutes. Yeah, like this and like this. And we speak today, well, first of all, about change makers, which can be social entrepreneurs, although it's a little bit maybe wider category. But it's actually a new word. So if you go to dictionary, there will be no definition of change maker because it's quite recent. And one of our mini projects is to actually create the definition. So we envisioned the Wikipedia page where will be collective definition of who is change maker. And we have definitions from 14 or 15 countries already. So now it's time for India. So you will have a few minutes to discuss and write down, but please write down the way I can collect it and take it after. Your definition, who is change maker? If you have to write definition to the dictionary, how as a group you would define change maker? Is it clear for you?
Yeah.
Do it then. You can gather a bit so it's easier maybe to talk.
So it's Changemaker is someone who inspires people to take action, someone who makes people grateful for, who builds some self-sustained movement, which take people towards a positive outcome, and someone who takes action to make this world better. So,
Okay. Thank you a lot. And number 3.
A change maker is someone who is able to identify solutions socially relevant for a lot of people. So this is a simple definition that we want. We have more attributes on it, but that's what the main crux is. So identify a solution for socially relevant problems.
Beautiful, thank you. Okay, as I said, at the end I will collect it for every, sometimes for the challenges there are also prizes, so I move you 3 steps ahead for 3 definitions, then will be maybe more tasks later, so, but okay. Yeah, beautiful. What I like in this is that we always have completely different definitions, although they have something in common, right? But we also don't have one clear definition. So when we look for change makers, we don't have tick list of 10 features and then this is change maker or not, because we believe that something like this doesn't exist, and a lot depends on the context. So in Cambodia, somebody who provides job and people work 8 hours and have, I don't know, health insurance and don't work in weekends, this is change making. In Europe, this is a law, So somebody doing that would be not change maker, right? So a lot of things depending on the context. So we don't have one definition, and Wikipedia don't exist our definition yet, but on our website we already have set of definitions, which you can also check how other people, like there was Bolivia, here we have Romania, how other people understand it, and that's where your definition will end up one day as well. Okay, and maybe not in group, but we also speak actually today about social enterprise. So what is the social enterprise? If anybody can say in few words, how you understand social enterprise definition?
An enterprise that's working towards a social cause.
Okay.
Maybe an enterprise which puts impact first and profit next.
Not necessary. You can also think of profit, but at the same time, you try to protect the environment or the society, or you help the society.
The primary goal is social well-being. Profit is
not the profit.
Along with it, but the primary
It's a
goal is
priority.
well-being or upliftment.
Profit is a byproduct.
Byproduct.
That's what I'm saying. That's along with it.
Again,
It's
yeah,
more
nice.
about a sustainable structure. So when you're working for a social cause or creating a product or a service that could simplify any process or a problem in the society, and at the same time, the model in itself is sustainable, where you don't have to depend on donations or grants to continue the work, because you also want to make the people creating that impact survive, at the same time create the larger impact.
Yes.
So I think
Perfect.
Yeah, I agree with that. It should be self-sustainable. It should not be dependent on external funding. At the same time, it should bring a huge change in certain smaller group or a bigger group, targeted group or something. It should be self-sustainable.
Yeah, exactly. We differ a bit, but more or less the core is the same, no? So it's basically, because it was also before in change making about this earning money, and what we also believe, earning money or business is not good or bad, it's just a tool. So basically, for us, it's like using business tools for social change. So social change can happen through volunteering, but can also happen through using very successful business tool, which can be good or bad depending who use them how, right? So all the stories we choose today are actually social entrepreneurship enterprises in very different models, because there may be millions of examples. Before we had a model of business who hire people who are homeless, so people who normally don't get a job. So they make a huge change in life of those people, but they earn money. So they don't have to ask for donation all the time, but they provide good service and they are self-sustainable. So no donation, no government, you know how it is with donation grants and governments. They are good, but they have their bad sides, and this is more sustainable. Good, very good. So we actually got these 3 steps and we got the yellow card. So now you have to take yellow card. I didn't give it you before, but you got 3 steps to yellow. So take it and see what is written.
Change teams.
Change teams. Sometimes things happen. So 2 people from this team go to this team, 2 people from this team go to this team, and 2 people from here go here. So 2 people have to stand and go to the team on the right. Team on the right. 2 people stand and go to this team.
So we have to take photographs. So let's take
Yep.
So we go
Yeah, good, good. One more person from this team here. Yeah, very good. Yeah, perfect. Okay, and new team is throwing the dice. Yeah. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you're a very task group. You have new group to do the task. So in your new group, the task will be, so we are in India now. We want to know stories of changemakers from India, right? So please discuss few minutes in your group and choose one story, if local from Chennai, even better, and tell us changemaker story from here. So it's your turn to share some changemaker stories. Choose one, okay, per group. So you have few minutes to discuss and choose the one you want to share.
Okay.
Let's start.
Inspired by my own life and my pain to start a community of community for parents, which will be a very supportive, positive place for people to understand that going through a divorce, separation, or even losing access to your child doesn't have to end your life. So there's life beyond. So it's about self-empowerment. My journey with support groups started about 6-7 years back when I went through my own divorce, and I realized that there is very little help that you get socially or even from your families or from any other forum when you go through a social crisis like that. So I think social work students here, so they will revalidate it that going through a divorce and separation is rated as one of the top most traumatic incidents in an adult's life after losing a child. So sometimes it's even higher. So I started a support group in Bangalore, and there are about 200 people in it, and that helped me to actually find purpose. That what is happening to me is much. There's something larger than that. I also met my husband on that group. So, and then we moved to Chennai, and I was struggling with the fact that I was estranged from my son, and I was not able to reach him and meet him and establish contact. So it was only last year that I realized that it was time to think beyond my pain and just keep looking at the loss that I have of not having my child in my life, which I really had that epiphany which says that it's time to look beyond and work for parents. And so I said, why not have a group which understands this problem and where you know that there are other parents, because there's a lot of strength in sharing that grief, sharing the loss, and finding people who have gone through a similar journey. So there began the story of Milap, which actually means to reunite. Of course, the aim is that we get reunited with our children, but also a larger spiritual meaning which says reunite with your own self. Because there's a lot of sense of loss, big loss that you undergo. So people still make peace with the divorce and separation, but losing children is very difficult because for all reasons. And it's also the most important relationship that we build in our life is with our parents. And then if that child, as a child, the child goes through extreme amount of estrangement, bitterness with the other spouse, does not get to meet the parent, or mother or father, they grow up with incomplete personality. So the larger aim of this initiative is to tell the general public that we need to look at separate and divorced families, accept them, not judge them, accept the children, and also encourage families, if they're going through this, to continue contact with both parents. So let each child enjoy the love and care of both the parents is what this is. So the group roughly has about, if I calculate around all the members, it's a small group, about 40 or 50 people across the world and in India. In Chennai, the group meets on a monthly basis, and we are trying to create a community where the people can talk about what they're going through, not feel judged, not feel socially excluded. And I have to say that wonderful set of very empowered people that are part of the group right now. So that's the journey of Mila. So we started in April 2019.
Thank you, that's very beautiful. And
Yes. I think we're all confused as which story. But so this is a person that I know personally. So we discussed a lot of great stories. But this is some person who's living amongst us at the same level. So kind of this is more inspiring to me. There's about a person called Chandra. He runs a company called Watson. They are into water purifiers that don't need power or electricity to kind of purify water. And his idea was to provide even the homeless or the really, really poor with safe portable water, right? So he, along with people with IIT Madras and other people, he developed a very low-cost water purifier that can even pure water from arsenic and harmful chemicals that can be cancer-causing kind of chemicals that you would usually find it in water bodies that are near to industrial areas, right, where the water is being contaminated with the industrial effluents. So he kind of provides those water purifiers at almost zero cost, or I mean cost to cost basis to all such areas. And he, not just in India, he's been across to other countries of the world wherever this portable drinking water seems to become a fundamental problem, day-to-day problem, and women of the household or even men of the household have to travel, have to walk miles and miles to get just potable water, right? So he kind of does that. He manufactures that here in Chennai, in Jafar Khan Pet, which is near Kasi Theatre. So his factory is here, and he takes us across the entire world.
completely different stories. And the third one.
So we didn't look too far for inspiration. So this is the pencil that was given to us. This is by a company called Pepper. And earlier they were known as Mansell. I know the founders of this company, a young couple called Vishnu and Divya. So so their products, so essentially this pencil, you just don't throw it, you can plant it and it grows into a plant once you're done using it. So we tied up with different large corporates for stationery and gift items, and it's eco-friendly and creates something further also, right? You just don't throw it, you plant a tree. That's one. And they also have tied up with farmers in Tiruvannamalai and Coimbatore area to produce, to grow organic chemical-free crops, millets and stuff. And they have an initiative by which, say, a person can contribute as little as about 3,500 or 4,000 rupees a year. You can sponsor a farmer with those funds, and for the money that you pay, you actually can go and spend time with the farmers. You can stay there for a couple of days and see how they actually do the organic farming. You can stay with them, and you also get a share of the produce, the fresh crops. And their initiative, it's really transforming the lives of those farmers there, like middlemen who used to take a lot of profits in the term of getting stuff from them and selling it, right? They're trying to give them a fair price for the crops that they grow.
Thank you.
And Anna, one more very quick story, very similar to the other story in Barcelona, right? There's an organization, again, this is a story worth telling. There's an organization called Periphery here in Chennai, and some of you will have come across them. There's a lady called Neelam who runs that. So she kind of gets members from the LGBTQ community, trains them, and then makes them employable in companies, right? So and gives them not employable in the sense like gives them respectable jobs, right? So some of them are as a receptionist at companies, some of them work in software companies as a developer. So she does that, right? So they take them, get them mentally kind of come out of their inhibitions and whatever they built around themselves, right? So hey, you're just another person in the society, and then kind of trains them and makes them employable.
Cool. I see that. I hope that write down some of these names. I mean, now we are leaving Chennai tomorrow, but it seems that we will come back. So maybe we'll have a chance to go deeper interview stories and include them in our program as well. So thanks a lot for that sharing. And 3 points for 3 stories, even 4 stories, but still 3 points. And you can choose this story because it was you two threw the dice the last, so you can choose the title of the story. Tonle. Tonle is from Cambodia actually, and you say you do the handbags, right? So Tonle is making clothes, and in Cambodia, which generally a lot of clothes which we use also come from there. But their idea was to do recyclable and zero waste clothes. So what they do is that they collect the leftovers from other factories. So factories throw away the materials which they don't need. They collect them and they use them to create new clothes, bags, gadgets. And during their process of production, they don't create any waste. So they use everything to the last thread, you know. If they cannot do t-shirt anymore, they do scarf. If they cannot do scarf, they do notebooks. So they don't literally create any waste. So it's like zero waste fashion company. And obviously they also hire people in the fair conditions. No? So again, they work as they should work. They have health insurance. They have kindergarten for their children and things which are not that obvious in Cambodia. But it's also so far the only recyclable zero waste fashion which we saw, and fashion is one of the industry which pollutes the most environment. So actually this is also where the change is needed very, very fast.
So they're producing garments as well?
What's that?
So they have garments as well. Yeah, the garments. Yeah. These garments are made from garments which people...
Yeah, so they take the scraps, everything which other factories throw away because maybe they cut already and they don't need it.
Factories, of course.
Like other commercial factories, they throw away for the rubbish and they collect it and create new clothes. So they basically use waste of other people to create beautiful products, all in all, and they don't create waste anymore. So they, instead of using new resources, use something which other people just say, okay, we don't need it anymore.
Yeah, it's not a used garment, it's a garment which is surplus.
Basically scrap, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not used.
Understood.
It's just scrap of other factories, which do it in like, you know, massive way. So they do always the same things. While there, I mean, you can find the similar patterns, but very often they have only one T-shirt of this type because only this scrap was available. So they're actually quite unique as well.
Unique pieces.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to see this material?
We can as well, although you know, the time is. Smateria is also from Cambodia, and Smateria you do more gadget and accessories, but they use, for example, the fisherman net to do them. So they color the fisherman nets, and I don't have it with me, but I have one wallet even from them, but I left it at home. So yeah, the products. So, yeah, so this you can see this is for fisherman nets. So when the fisherman net is already broken, so you cannot fish, they use it to actually create GPS is lost. So they use it to create products. So it's like upcycling. No, you give the new value to do something which basically, according to people, didn't have value at all. And they grow very fast. I mean, both companies actually they grew quite a lot last years. Okay, where's the time? That's your time. So that was Tonle, right? I hope
it's going to be 5. It's going to be 5. Don't worry.
Always 5.
5.
I told you, right?
You are such a 5 group. Oh, okay, but 5 is another story. So choose the story. Come on. Danke, bakery. You go for it. I go for it. Okay, Vietnam. Vietnam, and they wanted to employ. Mark wanted to employ the people with disabilities, mostly blind and deaf people. So he was thinking, okay, what kind of job we can create for people with disabilities? I mean, we all know that they have difficulties with finding jobs in all countries in the world. I mean, I think there is no country where they are not facing this challenge. So Mark thought, okay, maybe we do sandwiches. There's a lot of embassies. We will do sandwiches, and they will go to embassies, sell sandwiches. Yeah, like first 2 days people were buying sandwiches out of curiosity, but they were not that interested. So the idea collapsed. So they thought, okay, people eat bread. Not everywhere, I know, but generally people, eat bread. So maybe we will learn how to make bread. But they didn't know how to make bread. But Marcos actually raised up in Germany, and he knew that in Germany there's a company which is sending the retired people as volunteers to other countries to help. So he called them and said, do you have any retired baker guy who will come and teach us to make bread? And they said, yes, we have. So the guy came. He was speaking only German, but anyway, half of them were deaf, so it doesn't matter, right? So through just mimic what he's doing, they start to do bread, but nobody wanted to buy it. And after some time, some clients come and say, look, I mean, this way of doing bread was used 50 years ago. Nobody does it like this way anymore. So the bakery option was not working that much. So they then opened cafeteria and say, okay, we do event, we invite our friends, we'll have a lot of people to come for cafe. And people come for first event, 30 people come. For second event, 20 people. For third event, there was 5 people, right? And they were like, okay, our third business idea doesn't work, what's now? And suddenly somebody came and say, listen, in the school close by, the catering company resigned, and we need somebody who will do lunches for kids. And they thought, oh my God, we never did any lunches for any kids, but let's learn, right? And they started to do lunches. And finally, it occurs to be a great idea. So it was blind and deaf people serving it to kids. So you additionally have this building relation. And they really started to do really healthy lunches and from different cuisines. So maybe one day was Japanese and Korean and Thai food and Indian food, so the kids will also have different ideas about that. And they start to educate also parents about healthy eating. So create all the things around. And the school loved it so much that the other schools start to call them if they can provide lunches for them, actually. And finally, this occurs to be the success. And today they are employing 90 people, 90, mostly deaf and blind. And they even reopened the cafeteria and they call it Donkey Bakery to remember that, okay, if you want to succeed, you have to be really stubborn as a donkey. And it's not, we tell you beautiful stories and you tell us beautiful stories, but the truth is that, behind every success, there's a million failures, right? And we can have beautiful concepts, but then it's never just growing up into success. There's a lot of failure and standing up, and again and standing up, And we like the story because, for him, probably it would be easier or to quit or start to hire people who are not disabled, but the vision was clear. I want to provide job for people with disabilities. And at the end, after many months of failing, they actually became very, very successful story. Okay, good. Where is the dice? Yes. 5. Oh, come on. 6. No, you always ask.
Again, another story.
Oh no.
Yeah, the last one.
Okay, another story. Choose another story.
Good because
No, I want to say. I'm sorry, I already elaborated. Then you have to choose one story which Andrea will say,
Sure.
But I need photos this time because I have, all the already. This one is not by chance. Okay. So Mira is coming from Romania, where we had IT guys who were just crazy about programming and all this stuff, right? And they were thinking, how can we use our abilities to change the world for better? And they create this game, when you play with your computer, you can play tennis or something, you're moving. I don't know how to call it, but you got it, right? So I'm here and I'm playing the game. So I'm the white bird and moving my hands, the bird is moving, and I try to omit the black birds. So, I'm not smashed, right? So I'm just standing in front of a computer who's reading my movement. And here I hear animal and I have to decide this is a horse or it's a sheep. And this is a boy who needs rehabilitation. So 50 times he has to do this movement, right? And obviously he doesn't want because it's very boring. But with these games, they are designed the way that he is doing these movements and he's not even realizing it because he's playing the game. And before you see that, behind he has the therapist who is just taking care that he's not doing it like this, right? But in the straight posture. And the boy is just playing. And it's really super smart game because it's also counting the progress. So it's telling you, aha, he did it faster than last time. So now you can go the level up. So, or this movement he's doing very well with right hand, but not that good with left hand, right? So they can really design for every single patient, they can design another game which will exactly do what they have to do. It occurs also that seniors love it. So when the old people have to, exercise, they also really like these games. And actually, their business model is that they sell it to hospitals. So hospitals can or buy it forever or pay like annual fee, kind of. And then for this money, of course, they pay their employees, but they also open NGO, which provide this kind of and other kind of rehabilitation for free for kids who cannot really afford that. Because they have to do it every day. It's really, really a lot of money. So they actually combine both social business with NGO through the IT, geek. So that's also a nice way. Okay, and now you have to choose one story for Andrea.
Let me choose it.
Yeah.
Good. Please. Thank you. All is yours.
Latin letters.
But for this we have a video.
Or tell me your favorite story.
Tell me your
favorite story. Let him tell his favorite story.
This is actually very good, and it's good also because like a different field. But you go first with the video, and then I.
Yeah, I'll go first with the video.
Yeah, go first with the video. So, like, if you want to hear all the story, all the song, you have to go for the link later. But like, probably you understood that all the instruments are made with recycled material. Not only like the instruments, but also like all the electrical part is and like you've seen also like bike powered. And like this is a story we met in Colombia, in Medellin. And Andrea is the founder of this organization. She was working with kids in slums in poor areas, but she's also like very passionate about the environment and about music. And like she wanted to use music to educate kids in the NGOs we were working for. But the point is that she didn't have money for instruments and they didn't have money for themselves. So the only thing that like there is plenty in the slums is like rubbish. So she started to like take some instruments, like take some things and transform them into the instrument. But the cool thing about this project is that the sound of the instrument is really good. Like you wouldn't be able to say that this like if you just hear the music, you wouldn't be able to say that this is just like a Coca-Cola bottle. Or like, my favorite is the guitar that she was playing. And it's like made with like a bonbon box, like this one. And it's a bonbon box, and it's like I was really impressed. And like this is like a computer box, like the paper cut. So like so she started with the kids, and at the beginning it was like flutes, something easy to do, like drums and so on. But like they really got into a level in which now they are recognized for the music they do and for the sound they do, and they like go through the country to the continent, but also like internationally. They went to Europe as well for festivals to play, and And right now they are also starting to sell some of the instruments to generate some money. But the impact they do is also through bringing people together. So they don't focus only on one style of music, but they manage to play different style of music, because like through different style of music they get to different people. So like what you heard was like sort of like pop cumbia, so like traditional music they sound, but they play like some international music as well. So like they reach like different backgrounds of people. What else? Really inspirational. Like Andrea's house is also like all made like with the record.
Rubbish, basically.
Yeah, like record material.
And you call it nicely recyclable materials, but they are rubbish which they find on the street, you know, or they were. Now they're not anymore, right? Okay, good. We finished for today the Changemaker game, but the point is that, you know, playing Changing the World is like a lifelong game. It never finishes, actually. And we use this game a lot, and this game is just a metaphor. So in the rules of the game, there are some metaphors hidden. And now you have to guess what metaphors we use in the rules of the game. Like if you think that this game is a metaphor of changing the world for better, what elements could you identify?
Progress.
Progress. Okay, so we're going, I mean, you were like going ahead, you never got the yellow card which was said go, you know, back, because you always have 5 and get, you know, all the yellow cards. But yeah, what else?
Coming together for a common cause.
Mm-hmm.
So we're, you know, we're hunting together to identify, we're hunting together to, you know, identify, come up with something. So
yeah, exactly.
It's a team effort. It's not an individual who can do that. Right? The individual could have the spark, but then they'll have to bring other people together to make things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Identify the stories on your journey and get inspired by the stories and contribute towards the stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what else?
It's also a path.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Go
moves
both ways.
Yeah.
You could, I mean, your challenges or your failures could take you back and then you go forward again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
You never know where you go.
Yeah, as well. It's unpredictable in different ways. No, you throw the dice, you don't know what will finish. But also, you may see that we change it meanwhile, you know, we always change it meanwhile. Because very often when you're at the beginning of your way and you think, okay, I do this, this, and this, and my path would be like that, right? And then you start to go, and the path is like longer and go, you know, going more back, and you know, you never know, right? Where the path will actually bring you. Yeah, and as you say, it's very teamwork. So in the way we did the task, but also for us, it's very important that we actually play with only one player and not 3 of them. So we don't compete in changing the world. We are actually collaborating in changing the world. And this is something which I never liked in the games, right? So there are some losers and some winners. If you would play with 3 players, we would be still in 1/3. And we do believe that changing the world is a game we need to play all together. So it's not about, you know, how many people each of us help, I don't know, take out from poverty, but how all together we can finish poverty completely, right? And this is what, for us, what is changing the world together. So what we believe is that it's not about huge organizations and governments and, I don't know, superhero change makers, but it's really about every single person to taking some steps ahead, and together we can really bring a difference. And that's what was this game about.